for so many people, especially when it comes to New Year's resolutions. You see, I did a little bit of thinking about this week as I was thinking about New Year's resolutions and what they mean and how we treat them and what we do with them and how they impact our lives or don't impact our lives for that matter. And I think New Year's resolutions probably came into being because the new year leads people to want to make positive changes in their lives. You know, look no further than just this year. When you looked at the end of this disastrous year of 2020, this year that just it seemed like it kept knocking us down time and time again, everybody thought there was some magical thing going to happen January 1st, 2021. You see, I think the new year inspires us to want to move forward and be somebody different and change who we are. Well, there's one very predictable theme that comes from New Year's resolutions. And that is the number of people that make some type of New Year's resolution to either go to the gym or exercise more or lose weight, change something about their overall appearance. A matter of fact, it's been said that gyms are like ghost towns in November and December. Then in January, they become as busy as the New York City subway. Now, an interesting thought about that, though, is that not only do they become incredibly busy in January, but as the month goes on, the crowds begin to get smaller. And as we move into February and March, the crowds get smaller and smaller. And usually by the time spring rolls around, sometime in March or April, the crowd at the gym is now back to the regulars that are there all year round. Imagine with me for a moment if our commitments were surefire bets. If what we decided and what we committed to would be a surefire bet. Truthfully, though, plans are never certain. And life is pretty much a toss-up most days. You know, sometimes things work out as expected, and everything goes according to plan, and everything's perfect, and it works just like we want it to work. And then there are times that nothing goes right, and everything ends up all over the place. Once again, look no farther than 2020, okay? Last year this time, we were busy getting ready for winter retreat. I was planning a mission trip. We were getting ready to put deposits down for Centrifuge Summer Camp the 1st of February. We had sign-ups going on for concerts and going to movies. We had all types of stuff going on. And the year got off pretty good, and we started out following a good plan and getting certain things done and being able to do activities and things like that. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit. And the world got turned upside down. And everything changed. You see, that's the way it is a lot of times with our commitments and our promises in life. And there's just no surefire bets with those. With these resolutions, you can't guarantee that you're going to be able to follow through with it all the time. I will tell you, though, that as I really began to think about this, what is one resolution that we can all make that would be a surefire thing? What is one thing that all of us could do that would be life-changing for everyone, ourselves and people around us? And that one thing is love. I mean, what if we just simply commit to love others this new year? What if we just deep down in our hearts say, we are going to love everybody no matter what? That we're going to care for everybody that God puts in our path. That we're going to share love with everybody that comes our way. Can you just imagine what that might look like? I want to read a couple verses to you, and it's out of the book of Galatians. John, if you can find the slide, it'll be up on the screen too. Galatians chapter 5, verses 13 and 15. And I want you to follow along with me as we look at these verses tonight. Galatians chapter 5, verses 13 through 15. For you have been called to live in freedom, my brothers and sisters, but don't use your freedom to satisfy your sinful nature. Instead, use your freedom to serve one another in love. For the whole law can be summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Now we're going to come back to that verse here in just a second. But Paul goes on to say, but if you're always biting and devouring one another, watch out. Beware of destroying one another. I want to go back and look at verse 14 just for a second. I want you to think about this, because it's a really big sentence. Paul says, for the whole law can be summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. You know, honestly, all of us believers lose our motivation to love, okay? Let's just be truthful. We get aggravated with people. We get upset with people. We start being critical of others. We stop looking for the good in them. We stop wanting to see their good side. And we start to make a list of their faults. I won't ask you to show your hands, but I just want you to think to yourself, have you ever talked about somebody behind their back? And right now, everybody here live and everybody on the internet should be shaking your head yes, because all of us have talked about somebody behind their back at one time or another. Have you focused on others' shortcomings instead of their strengths? Have you gotten so aggravated that you see more of their faults than their good things? What we need to do is remind ourselves of Jesus' command to love others as you love yourself. I want you to flip in your Bibles over to Matthew chapter 22, verse 39. And I want you to look at this verse with me for a second. Jesus says, a second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, I want to kind of tell you just quickly what's going on in front of this. Jesus has been asked what the two greatest commandments are for Christians to follow. If you're going to follow Jesus, what are the two things that we need to do most in life? And Jesus looks at the people that ask this question and he says, first and foremost, you've got to love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. That's the first one. And then he says, but equally important. He doesn't say that it's number one, you got to love me with everything, and then in a distant second, it's love your neighbor as yourself. He says that here's what it is. You have to love me with everything that you are and everything that you hope to be, and on the same equal level, you have to love your neighbor as yourself. I want you to look up here on the screen, and I want you to just think for a moment about these words. Let them set in. Love your neighbor as yourself. Think about that for a moment. Because we really do love ourselves quite a bit, okay? I mean, think about it. How much activity centers around the care and comfort of self? Okay? If you're cold, you get up and get another blanket. If you're hungry, you go get food. How much of what you do every day is all about you? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's human nature, a matter of fact. Loving our neighbors as we love ourselves is not natural. It's not born into us. It's just not in our nature. We're born with the mindset of survival of the fittest. We're born with the mindset of, I'm going to take care of me and you worry about you. We're born with the thought that we're going to focus on ourselves and our well-being and our comfort first and foremost. But then once we're comfortable and taken care of, we'll think about everybody else. If even then we think about other people. But what would our world be like if we showered the same kind of love on our neighbors that we shower on ourselves? What would that look like if we gave out the same amount of love to the people around us that we poured into our own lives? When we start feeling critical of someone, what if instead of complaining about them, we took time and we made a list of all their positive qualities and we chose to focus on that instead of all the things that upset us? What if when problems need to be addressed, instead of going onto some social media platform and talking about them behind their back and gossiping about them, what if we chose to confront and love? And to talk to them directly? What if we took time just to pray and ask God to fill our hearts with love as we go to talk to them and to get rid of the anger? What if, this will be a big one for a lot of you listening, but what if when you hear gossip or backbiting, that instead of listening to it, you chose to confront the people that were doing it? Maybe even be brave enough and bold enough to call them out, and certainly walk away from it and just refuse to listen to it. You see, if we were, I'm not even going to say chose, I'm going to say commit. If we commit to love our neighbors, if we commit to love this new year, our world is going to look different. Don't plan on making it a resolution. Don't sit here tonight and say that I'm going to resolve to love everybody this next year, or I'm going to resolve to love my neighbor as myself. Because that type of commitment level sometimes is just about as similar as committing to go to the gym every day. And it's quickly going to fade away. Instead of making a resolution, or instead of just making some silly little halfway commitment, just do it. Just love. No plan, no agenda. Just be so much willing to share love with our neighbors and people around us that Jesus is literally leaking and oozing out of you into the world. That everywhere you go, people just feel Jesus. You know, our lives are a series of experiences. Some positive, some negative. Honestly, if we're really truthful, there's probably as many or more negative experiences in our lives as there are positive ones. But instead of focusing on whether something is positive or negative, what if we chose to make our life about people and about sharing love with people? I promise you, if you choose to do that, you won't regret it. You see, with this commitment, there is no gym to join, no pounds to lose. It is you choosing to focus on relationships. And God never intended for relationships with each other to be an afterthought. He never intended for us to just focus on ourselves so much that we stop paying attention to the people around us. What if we make this year about people? You know, you won't give others the love they deserve if you just merely try to fit it in around everything else in your busy life. If you just say that I'm going to allot this little bit of time to show love to my neighbors, it's never going to happen. And it certainly won't be at the level they deserve. Because people deserve way more from us as people and as Christ followers than what we give them most days. Jesus himself said it. The second, equally important. As equally important as loving him with everything is loving your neighbor. So this year, go with the sure thing. Choose love. Promise you won't regret it. Let's pray, guys. Father, I thank you for tonight, God.